Hello, and welcome to another live stream attempt as I learn how this all works. I have a better microphone today, and I think I changed the camera settings. So hopefully today is a little bit clearer video and audio wise than it was yesterday. So today, let me just pull it up right away and then we'll jump into it. So today, the main thing I wanted to share was this cool project um, inspired by Naz on Twitter, who I used to work with at Ghost. And so I'm trying to see how to lead up to this, and then I'll dive into the actual information. So I worked, like my last full-time role was as the senior SEO analyst. Let me make myself bigger. As the senior SEO analyst at AAA. And one of the reasons I took that role was to just kind of supercharge my learning in terms of SEO capabilities. Like I wanted to learn in a hard way. I wanted to be neck deep in issues and problems and get to talk to other industry leaders and having the opportunity allowed for that. And so I got really familiar with the whole different suite of issues and tools and all of that. And one of the things I learned that was interesting that if you know SEO, then you already know this. But how influential localized results are, right? So if you are, I'm in Ohio, right? And if you are in California, a number of the searches you do, you're going to get different results than I do. Now, we assume that already happens with really basic stuff like donut shop near me or, like best tortilla shop. I don't know. My mind's on food. So those are my examples. But what people don't realize is that it can influence like a lot more than that. And so, when you ask, like you can look up details on this, but if you ask like a political question or even a medical question or things like that, the answers you receive off of Google can be influenced by your location. And so, it just kind of feeds into this sectioning off of what people believe and how they understand the knowledge that's coming to them and everything. And so when he came, like he was sharing an example of, because he was traveling, he is a digital nomad. He was traveling and showing the different examples he encountered. So, he'd be in one country and searching for, ideas for the next destination. And so, Google would present all of these different articles and clippets of here are the countries you should go to next, right? And then when he went to another country, those results would change because different countries were getting different recommendations. And I went into this and I was like, hey, I think we could run this study across every country and then pull data out of it to show, what are the countries that Google is most recommending, and then what trends can we pull off of that information. So that led to this graphic that you're seeing here in the study I conducted. I have been looking for a good place to write about this because I don't think it belongs on my content class right now. I'm looking for a blog or community that is focused on digital nomads. So if you know of anyone who would like a guest post like this, message me or at me so that I can, follow up and hopefully bring this to them. I think it'd be really useful to have all of this information living somewhere, just so as people are thinking about where to go and how to interact with, the digital nomad culture, they have a little background on, what influences it. So anyways, let me make it bigger now. Okay. So let me scroll down and you're going to see a few examples of what I mean. Let me zoom in a little bit. How do I zoom in here? Oh, it's here. Okay. There we go. So this is, for context, I used a tool named Bright Local. And so that's, a local SEO tool. There's a bunch that perform similar capabilities. I like this one because in terms of like the study we were doing, it made it super easy to conduct lots of searches very quickly, and basically changing your starting country. So in every one of these examples, the country in this column is where we conducted the search from. So we just changed, basically our Google starting point. And then we saw what country was recommended by Google as a result. So, and this was conducted, let's see if I wrote it. It's not on this version, but I conducted this over like a week in December of 2023. So as of then, the results were accurate. This changes. I found like even while I was doing the study, I found a few changes here and there. And so, the results are always in flux. You can expect what you're seeing here to be accurate, to maybe 10, 20%. And then over time, it's going to get a little less accurate. But so if you are in the US and you search for like this keyword, best countries for digital nomads, right? That was our starting point. The country you get recommended is Costa Rica. The same is true for if you search from the UK, but then if you search from Canada, you're going to get a different top recommendation. You're going to get, the Google snippet that says Spain, and then the articles that are presented to you are chosen in a way that support Spain more than other countries. So I thought that was interesting. And then going down again, if you search from Australia, Mexico is going to be the number one recommended country. Going down again, if you're in Germany, Croatia. So again, something completely different than the other recommendations. And so as you can see, let's go to the other category. Where you start from very much influences where you're recommended to go next. So in Kuwait, that was Portugal. Portugal used to be one of the top recommendations when I was looking at this information a little earlier. And then it fell and Mexico became number one. And so I just, I literally conducted this, I think, for 182 or 83 countries. So not all of them, because not every country was available in Bright Local. But you'll see like pretty much, the majority of countries on Earth, the vast majority of countries on Earth are on this graphic, and they tell you exactly where they're recommended. So that led to this information down here. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole thing. Okay, so based on all of the data that we pulled across all 180 plus countries, these were the ones that were most recommended. So first was Mexico. So nearly half of the countries in the world, when you search from them as a starting point, half of them in the world recommend Mexico as the top destination for digital nomads. So that was interesting. Next is Portugal. So about 1/5 of every country on Earth recommended that as the top destination. And then third was actually Romania, which being that I'm US based, a lot of the recommendations and articles I've read are, tilted towards a different perspective. So I don't even think I've heard of Romania in the top 5 or top 10. And then when I conducted this global study, Romania was in the top 3. Very interesting. From there, Spain was a close fourth at 13, and then Costa Rica, Croatia, Germany, and Thailand only came up once in every study that I did, which, again, if I conducted this in a different time of the year, which I can try to do again, like maybe this summer, I'm sure Thailand would have moved up a number of places. I feel like at one point, Thailand was probably the number one recommendation in the world. And so, yeah, this is just a crazy interesting study. And I loved, like, for digital nomads, it's a very clear use case, right? Like I'm looking for another country to go to. But what I think is interesting that not a lot of people who don't spend a lot of time in SEO realize is this affects so many other things, like the tools you're being recommended. Again, I have heard of examples of this in medicine and politics. And so just to take everything you search and learn and understand with a grain of salt is that you're being presented something that is curated. It's, the Google algorithm is a curation service. It's trying to find, quote unquote, the best resources for you. But what that means depends on a lot of factors. One of them being where you are in the world. state-wise, country-wise, language-wise. If we look at this, like one of the trends I pulled from this was that um, the majority of countries on this list speak Spanish. So, as we think about what languages are going to be most important in the next 5, 10, 20 years, well, if digital nomadism is a trend we expect to go up over time, and these are the top countries it's recommending to the thousands or millions of new nomads growing over the decades. Spanish is going to be a very in-demand language and resource because Mexico, Portugal, Spain, Costa Rica, all of those have Spanish as their main language. That's an interesting kind of sub-trend in there. In terms of location, I was trying to work on a map with another data viz tool, but I was terrible with it, so it was taking a really long time. But if you break it up into how many of these countries are in Europe versus like what continent versus South America, you can see that there's definitely a favoritism towards Europe, Southern Europe. You're looking at, Spain, obviously, Costa Rica is in the Caribbean. So you can kind of see where people are being drawn towards. Pretty much all of these are warm climates. I'm not sure, like Romania overall. I know Germany is not primarily warm, or I would say Croatia, but my geography is terrible. So, and then from there's one more main trend I wanted to talk about, but I'm blanking on it. But yeah, I'll post this on Twitter and on LinkedIn, so anyone who wants to download it and look at it more can go ahead. Yeah, but the main point of this was just to show off how much location influences your results when you're searching SEO. And so when you are a global company, working for non-English audiences or English and other languages, something to consider is how you will be presented and who you will be presented alongside, because the results can change so much. So this was a fun little SEO project. I thought it would, add to the conversation around digital nomads. I have never been one yet, but this is something I think people who are in that space will find really interesting. So I'll put this online so people can share and consume it. Okay, and let me get out of this one and see if I can share the tool that I used, just so people can see what it looks like. Okay, give me 1 second. Let's see if I can present another screen. There we go. All right, let's see here. So this is the tool I use, Bright Local. And so if you are, a local business like a restaurant or barber shop, mechanic shop, all of those, these are one of the tools that the pros use to make sure you are showing up for near me searches and keywords like that. And so it's super useful for that. I have only worked on a handful of projects like that, but in terms of the global study I just did, it was exactly what I needed. So if you are ever looking for someone to help you with local SEO or looking for a tool to help you, use this or find someone who knows how to use this really well, because it's a great starting point. Cool, showed that. And I think that's literally everything I had on my list today. I want these lunch and learns to be, kind of tight and useful, so you can come in, drop in, learn something, and then head back. I want to theme them like I mentioned yesterday. And so I wish I had a whiteboard. I wonder if there's a whiteboard that I can present with and then draw on here. That'd be cool. I'll have to figure out how to do that. But I want there to be, where we talk about trends that are happening in the content space, in the marketing space, in the product marketing space. I want to bring on other voices in those who are doing unique things or things that are, just executed really well. And I want to talk about the strange things I'm writing about on content class because I think that will be fun to share kind of a behind the scenes look at how I write what I write and where that comes from. That's what I'll talk about tomorrow. I'm writing a piece called The Trend Pendulum. And I think it's super useful for any marketing team, but especially if you're a solo creator and you're trying to understand where to focus your efforts. I think a tool like that can be really useful. Um, and then from there, I'm trying to think what else. I obviously will open it up, but I think having like a theme per day so that people know what they're coming into, and then I have something to share. That would be a lot of fun. And yeah, and then of course, any questions and ideas you guys have along the way. So that was my main presentation today. I want to talk about how localized SEO changes results, which I think is super fascinating, and share where we're going next with that. Let me see if there's any goodies that I can share before we close out for the day. Uh, I'll have to put some music in the background. Yeah, I have some ideas about the content class specific information that I want to share and how I'm going to try to position that because I talked about yesterday how it's no longer a free resource, but it's only paid. And it's technically like not really a newsletter anymore. It's more towards a serial, how you would understand a serial publication, like a podcast or a limited series, and how to frame the wording and language around that. So that's an idea I want to unpack with you because I think talking about that out loud will be helpful to people who aren't necessarily attracted to just the advertisement driven newsletter space and want to write creatively, but aren't sure how to monetize that in a sustainable way. And so that is one of the cruxes of why I'm trying to do it differently. And hopefully it works in a way so that other people want to replicate that model of publication. Um, and then from there, yeah, we'll just keep talking about the random projects and good, cool things that we find on here. So thank you again for humoring my test of this live stream. Hopefully, it sounded and looked a little clearer than yesterday. And we will continue to experiment with this until we find what works now. So thank you again for dropping by, leaving comments, and so on. And I'll talk to you tomorrow at around 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. That is going to be the goal time from now on. I may start a little before or after, depending on what is actually going on that day. I know I have kept starting early because I had the time and just wanted to jump into it. And then we'll see how these platforms work. Because right now it's on Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I know there's a vertical version you can do with StreamYard, so I might play with that and see how it looks on the platforms. But otherwise, thank you again for consuming this, those of you who popped in and said hi. And yeah, I'll talk to you later.